Dear Asians, I want to talk to you. Let's talk about colorism and white worship. The reason we see the rise of passport bros in recent years is because, well, I'm a traditional woman who will fulfill all my desires. And I like to be worshipped. 'Cause I'm white! Yes, there's colorism in Asia and people don't talk about it as often because they are programmed subconsciously. That white means higher class, high status, because in the past, well, Asians, the royalties, they stay out of the sun while the peasants work in the fields. So yes, white is seen as a status. A trophy. And if you have dark skin, I have bad news for you. Because freaking colorism exists and it has to end. Due to colonialism, plus that historical cultural aspect of Asian, side of the sun, and economical disparity, they are taking advantage of colorism, vulnerable women who are, suffering from poverty, wanting a way out and wanting to snatch a white trophy husband. And then the white guy will be like, they want my money only. Yeah. And you want them to be your little subservient lotus blossom. Do you actually care about their well-being? Do you care about their personality or them as a human being? Shrek's on demand. Look at me. I'm the last samurai, white edition. Who created the racial hierarchy and why are Asians still believing in this shit? To justify colonialism, racial inequalities, systemic racism, to put certain people on top. That is why I challenge your pre-existing beliefs. Asian brothers and sisters, love yourself. Love your tan skin. I love humanity. And that is why I speak out. There is no superiority based on race categories. And it was invented by eugenic white supremacists. So why are you still buying into that? I love you Asian and brothers and sisters, and this programmed self-hate needs to end. You don't need to be white to be beautiful. We are all just wheats in different colours, and we are humanity. But they want to divide us. Divide and conquer, that's their tactics. And I see through it, and now I'm like, and oppression. And subconscious beliefs, because oppression happens when people believe in it. It becomes their reality. And the shit. Stop worshipping white skin. White people are just human beings like us. Are you going to really buy into Nazis' racial theories? Please. And you are enough and lovable by being.
Why are Asian people and communities more accepting of marriages with white women and men rather than black women and men? This is one concept that has never made sense to me, and is South Asian and East Asian. But if a black woman even has a good job, a steady income, everything, her life is set, it will still be hard for her to be accepted by an Asian family. Whereas a white woman could be an absolute hippie, but it's easier for her to be accepted into an Asian family during marriage. So yeah, if there's anyone out there who can explain sort of why Asian communities are more accepting of their own culture marrying white people rather than black people.
I want you all to stop looking down on people that you view as whitewashed. Just a reminder that proximity to whiteness is a self-preservation and survival tactic. A reminder that post-World War II, Japanese Americans wouldn't even let their children learn their language or their culture because it was literally dangerous to be seen as Japanese American. We, as Americans, live in a society where whiteness and white supremacy pervades everything that we do. You cannot blame or shame people for being whitewashed when we are constantly being inundated with images and ideas that a person of color is just not as good as being white. Have some compassion for your fellow people, my friends.
Well, I mean, it's not just because we're East Asian, it's because of things like, how South Korea is a colony of the United States and, K-pop and K-drama, and then also how, anime is super popular, and so a lot of people are into Japan and, Hello Kitty and, all that type of stuff. Consumerism. Consumerism is why we're capitalism. Yeah, that's why. Yep, that would probably been the first thing you should have asked me before assuming that I didn't know what I was talking about because you didn't know what I was talking about, which obviously we have finally come to that conclusion. I already knew, it just took you a minute to get there. It's fine.
Good morning, guys. I hope you're doing fine. So there's this concept that has come to my attention, It's something close to what we speak about. We speak a lot about racism, colorism, And this is a new concept that I'm realizing now. So it's called white proximity. White proximity is a concept describing how individuals, particularly people of color, gain advantage of power due to being close to whiteness, whether through factors like lighter skin, specific mannerism, or cultural alignment. You see, white proximity is not just about physical skin tone, but also about occupying spaces and adapting behaviors that has been historically associated with the white middle class values, you see, which can lead to social, economic, and cultural capital. This can result in a people of color receiving benefits under systems of white supremacy, often in ways that are unnoticed or actively sought, So in this video, I want us to listen to how the victims and the perpetrators of this white proximity have realized that their white proximity is causing problems to black people and to other people around them, and the mechanisms that they employ to conquer this specific vice, because it's not a virtue in any way whatsoever. So without further ado, let's dive in, listen to them. I shall be back.
Now, I'm going to tell you what has been shown, what we have seen with our own eyes when it comes to a good portion of the Asian and Hispanic community. Now, I will reiterate and say a good portion because I know some people don't have active listening skills and think all. For the last 50 years or more, a good portion of Asian and Hispanic families have tried to get that proximity to whiteness. Why? Because one, they can now become invisible and not be targeted. And two, grab those straggling opportunities. The question becomes, do you feel that strategy has worked for you? Because as we can see, Asians and Hispanics are still being targeted. When you try to turn, I will say that it is understandable to want to be invisible from a threat and not want to be challenged by the threat. But the people that are opposing the threat that you are trying to become invisible from, those people are making progress that you get to benefit from. So you are playing the fence right now. But the thing is that really working for you? Because when you try to get that proximity to whiteness and cozy up to white supremacy, they love you for your vote. But what do you get for your vote? Nothing. They get everything. They maintain power while they continue to tell you to go back to China, while they continue to tell you to go back to Mexico. While we are here trying to embrace you. You see a lot of Chinese restaurants in black neighborhoods. You see a lot of Hispanic restaurants in black neighborhoods. Who is keeping the lights on in those buildings? I do not think that there are a lot of white supremacists that are actively trying to come, or white people that have this oppressive complex where they're trying to come over to our neighborhoods just to buy from you. They're not. They're staying in their neighborhoods with things glitzed and glamored, the Italian spots and all these other places with fine china. They're not coming. A lot of these restaurants are surviving off of our dollar. If we pull our dollars from your restaurants, a lot of your restaurants crash. So again, cozying up to white supremacy, what benefit are you getting? Because it doesn't look like you're getting anything. When I see Hispanics, a Hispanic home that has the American flag up front, I question and go, well, why are you not putting your own homeland's country flag up there? Why are you embarrassed of your own place? You shouldn't be. You should be proud to be where you're from. But you put that flag in the front of your house to disappear from being targeted. If a white supremacist drives his truck past your house and sees an American flag, he thinks it's another White House. But if you were to hang a Mexican flag or a Puerto Rican flag or a Cuban flag or any of these flags, you know you get targeted. And you know when the LGBTQ, whenever you see a rainbow flag, that household gets targeted. Anybody that's trying to disappear or get some type of opportunity more than black people, we don't have the opportunity to disappear. And the fights that we have are pushing forward equality for all people. So I would like to challenge you to, again, what have you gotten from staying away from people that can strengthen you? It's just a question. Now, before we end, I would like to say, I am only trying to promote progressive dialogue. If there is any negative comments in these comments for this video, they will be deleted. Depending on how negative, you will be blocked. Your stay will be short-lived. Don't waste your energy, because I don't care about your negativity. I only care about the positive movement forward.
I think interracial couples content is weird, and I will never make interracial couple content. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't even make regular couples content because I think intimacy and love should not be observed through a screen constantly, and I think that's why I have such a successful relationship. Normal couple content is already weird to me, but slap on interracial and specifically make your content about the fact that you're an interracial couple, I find that weird. Recently, I've been getting a lot of like white and Asian interracial couple videos, and it's like, watch me subjugate my partner into eating my horrible white culture food, and I'm just like, what do you want us to say to potato salad or Snicker salad or whatever the fuck salad? I am in an interracial couple though, but not with a white person or a white man, so shut the fuck up and sit down. Keyboard warriors, put your fingers to rest. Do not comment Oxford study here. Like, we already have reality dating television shows, and saying that out loud is kind of insane to me, you know? Like, we're making love a business, and that is one part of my life that I will always keep sacred and close to my chest. I will say right now, I am in the happiest, longest, healthiest relationship I have ever been in my life, and I have only posted my partner on my Instagram once. And that was to get everyone to stop fucking hitting on me. And honestly, that didn't even work because people will still be like, are you married? Like, let's find a way to work around this. But yeah, I've had like an influx of people talking to me or like leaving comments that are like, prove that you've dated a black man, prove that you're not with a white man. And like the fact that people feel so confident to be like post photo evidence is just incredibly weird to me. Like, I just don't know what to say. Like, I'm still a person that has like my own life, and my partner has their own privacy in life, and that is a big reason why I don't share that online. Like, I need a part of my life for myself. I need a part of my life that is not like going to be scrutinized online, and that is like my romantic relationship, because I hold romantic relationships in high importance now. But to past me, I didn't give a fuck. I'm actually truly in love. I do not need to broadcast how happy I am. But yeah, if you're that fuck that keeps commenting under my videos to prove that I've dated people of color, literally kick rocks. Also, I'm sorry for saying all those words, but like, I really know that this person is stalking me, and it's like kind of stressing me out. Anyway, I'm gonna go to my nail appointment in K-Town and give you guys a good rec on a new artist I found.
If that's all you got away from this, then yeah, you basically got triggered and just stopped watching maybe like 30 seconds into the video, which is fine. That's your right. You don't have to, but like, let's get into it. So I talk about the fact that I don't really have much of a choice of being in Central Illinois for med school, okay? I was not super duper smart and get into multiple different medical schools. I only got into 2, okay? And one of them was, yes, kind of like in like north of Chicago, and maybe I could have gone there, but I chose to go to University of Illinois because it was cheaper. And med school is very expensive, if you didn't know. And just having to kind of not have many options, unfortunately, in order to be a doctor, except there, and then having to be there for 4 years in order to achieve my dreams of being a doctor, there weren't that many options. And unfortunately, I knew that, and I kind of resented that a little bit during the 4 years that I was there. But I was like, okay, Chicago's not too far. I'm sure I can find people there. And it's not like there weren't any Asian men in Chicago. Okay, it's none of your business, but I primarily date Asian men, okay? I say primarily because I'm not exclusionary. I have dated other people other than Asian people. But what I was trying to get at was I didn't have many options. And actually, I did somehow find a unicorn of an Asian man in Central Illinois. He was very cute. We dated for like a hot second because unfortunately, he also was like, I need to get the f out of here, and left to go work in a bigger city, right? So it was just, it's not just me feeling this way. It's not just me as an Asian woman feeling this way. An Asian man also felt that way, and it wasn't the only reason. Obviously, the career options are often better in bigger cities, so he was also pursuing his dream, and we had only just started dating, so it wasn't fair of me to be like, oh, like, can you stay for me? And that's the thing, right? Like, I respect his decision to pursue his dream and his career, and basically, I was doing the same thing for myself, right? I was choosing to build my career of my dream of being a doctor, which I am, by the way. So with the cards that we were dealt, people just around us made us feel a certain way about not feeling wanted, not feeling like we're the beauty standard in that area. Obviously, the options are much more limited than where I am now in LA. And like, yeah, people complain about dating in LA, and I sometimes complain about dating in LA, but I'll take this over that any day. So I will pay the higher rent and be here. And the whole thing with Jen Tran and the Bachelorette, from the discourse I saw on TikTok, was that it seemed like people were not expecting her to be the Bachelorette, but these men who were there for other women who was not Jen Tran, who was obviously the only Asian woman, you know, that was the card she was dealt, unfortunately. And feeling like everyone else was there for not the Asian woman, but for the other women, you know, it just kind of sucks. It's a shitty feeling. That's all that really is. But for the people saying she was also going after a white man, no, that was what she was dealt with. She was given one Asian man out of the entire slew of primarily white men, okay? So just probability-wise, she didn't have that many other options. Like, what is she, you know what I mean? Like, that was the card she was dealt, and that's why it resonated with so many people, and so many Asian women across multiple TikToks that I've seen. So yeah, that's what that is. But do you like?
Went to a community meeting this week, and to get to the meeting, you have to enter the building, pass the front desk, and then go downstairs, which is where the meeting actually was. So at some point during the meeting, they say, turn to your neighbor and, you know, talk to them about whatever. So this white woman is sitting next to me, and she goes like, oh, like you were upstairs. And I was like, oh, like maybe we came in at the same time. I don't know. I came from upstairs too. And she was like, oh no, like you were at the front desk. And there was a person at the front desk. That person was Asian. That was not me. I'm also not someone who is like, oh, like, you know, no one looks like me, or like, you know, people can't be confused. Like, I see people sometimes who I think look like me. This person, however, the only thing we had in common was the fact that we were Asian. So I brushed it off at the time, you know, I didn't say anything. I was just like, oh no, like, you know, that wasn't me. I think that was someone else. But what I have been thinking since is like, I really should have just said, you know, no, like that's just another Asian person. This kind of thing, if you are a person of color in this country, you know, happens not infrequently. I know that as benign a response as like, oh, that's just another Asian person, which is just a fact, would have made her uncomfortable, which is why I didn't say it, even though I was the one who was made to feel uncomfortable in that moment. And I think I've just gotten so used to not wanting to cause offense or like make anyone uncomfortable that it really suppresses your response. Like, I didn't even think about trying to say that in the moment. It wasn't really until much later that I was like, oh, like that's a response I could have given. And so I'm just trying to like consciously unlearn these practices that, you know, I didn't even know that I had necessarily when it comes to situations like that.
I think the reason why there are so many people who got angry about the fact that I said that there are some people who are in relationships to gain proximity to white people and whiteness is because there are some people who still believe that love happens by chance and isn't a concerted decision, a choice governed by so many different factors, some even beyond our control. There are some people who are getting into relationships because of what they can gain in terms of access, privilege and power. In the same way there are some people who marry for money, there are some people who marry for proximity. This is the reality, and while it may not apply to you specifically, there are people who it applies to, and I know who you are because you're the loudest in my comments. And I'm aware that we are all under the umbrella of white supremacy. What does that mean? We are all just trying to survive, subconsciously, consciously. So there are decisions that we're making every single day that are informed by our need to just live and survive. And subconsciously, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. This might have been one of your decisions. Instead of being angry at me because I didn't really do anything, all I do is just have opinions. That's all I'm doing. I invite you to sit in the discomfort of what may have been your decision, tussle with it, confront it, make peace with it.
Push the opinion out there too that I've really seen that we often favor whiteness, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's safe to say that even growing up on my childhood, you know, I remember my grandma saying, just don't date someone who's too dark skinned. And it's like, oh, why would you say that, you know? And that's always stuck with me as like, whiteness has always been favored because I feel like if you are in an interracial relationship with a white person, it's almost accepted a little bit more. Like, people almost say, oh, she did okay, though. I just don't understand that. Like, why do we have to put other races on a pedestal, right? It just doesn't make sense to me, honestly.
As a person of color who benefits from a proximity to whiteness, I have a lot of thoughts on privilege, specifically on how to handle the knowledge that you are privileged. So first I want to clear some definitional things real quick, right? I think for a lot of people, they can't wrap their head around the fact that privilege is not necessarily the presence of something, but it can also be the absence of something, right? So let's say a person of color getting stalked by a police officer, specifically a black person whose experiences I'm not trying to use to exploit, but just realistically, like in America, they are most disproportionately affected by police violence. The fact that a white person would not have that same level of fear, that specific same level of fear that comes from the knowledge of like systematic racism, that's where their privilege shows, right? Their privilege is in the absence of that fear, of that knowledge of what police officers began as, of the fact that this police officer will likely treat them differently, even if not on purpose, that they are at a higher risk for violence. That absence of that fear, of that knowledge, is where the privilege lies. So I think a lot of people think like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I'm privileged? For example, as a white person, I'm privileged, but I have all this bad shit going on in my life. But your privilege is about what you don't have going on, you know? Because you can still live a very unlucky life, very much brutalized by the system around you, capitalism. Like, you can still very much live a bad life and still benefit from certain privileges. Like, those two things are not mutually exclusive. They can exist in the same line of thinking. And I think that's where a lot of people get defensive, because they're like, what are you telling me? My struggles aren't worth something? You're telling me that I've never struggled a day in my life? But that's not what the conversation surrounding privilege is supposed to be about. Like, for me, for example, like, I remember being like, what do people mean that I benefit from, like, a proximity to whiteness? Like, are you guys saying I've never experienced racism? Because, like, obviously I did. I grew up in a very white area, if that's not obvious already. I experienced heavy racism. It was bullying, especially when I was, like, really little. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You're saying I don't experience these things? And my automatic reaction was to get defensive, because I thought people were invalidating my experiences when they weren't trying to do that. They were just trying to get me to be aware of it. Right? And now, like, moving on to the two paths that come with acknowledging your privileges. So one, I think this one's a little less malevolent, maybe. I think it's more common just in my personal experience, but it's when people, like, start feeling really guilty for their privileges, so they try to overcompensate for it in a bad way, right? I think that's partially where, like, the whole, like, colorblind racism, oh, I'm colorblind, like, I don't see color thing comes from, because people want so desperately to say, like, oh, I don't see color because I'm so removed from everything, because I'm just that good, you know, I don't see color. They're trying to overcompensate for the fact that they do see color and that their color has benefited them, because they feel really bad about it. It feels icky, you know, knowing that you have these privileges and feeling guilty. I think the guilt can almost be, like, paralyzing a little bit. People don't know how to deal with that, so they, you know, overcompensate. They try to be like a warrior and fight for other people's voices, when in reality they actually end up silencing them, because they're so desperate to overcompensate and be like, I've got this, like, don't worry, let me protect you. And it's like, by saying, like, you're gonna protect or help, you're kind of doing a hierarchy. They're like, you know what I mean? And then the second path would be kind of just what I talked about, which is where people get, like, really angry over it. They're like, what do you mean I have these privileges? You're saying I've had a really easy life, but nobody's saying that you've had a really easy life. We're just saying that you're unburdened by certain things because of your identity. And meanwhile, you could have an incredibly difficult life. It's just that these specific things won't affect you. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. Also, nobody, please don't debate if you think I'm a person of color or not. That is not what this video is about. I will scream and cry.
Why do so many East Asian women have white boyfriends? It is the most common interracial pairing in the United States, and honestly, the most judged. Let's unpack. According to census data, East Asian women are more likely than any other women of color to marry outside of their race. And guess who's at the top of that list? Yup. White guys. When you grow up in a Western society, whether consciously or unconsciously, whiteness gets coded as normal, powerful, desirable. White men might be perceived as offering more social capital, financial security, or upward mobility, which might be especially appealing to first or second gen immigrants. But also, lots of East Asian women just happen to fall in love with a white guy. It doesn't have to be that deep. So yeah, some of it's social conditioning, some of it's real connection. But when attraction is shaped by power structures, can anything be just personal?
黒人の好きなところとかってありますか？
黒人かっこいい。
どういうところ？
なんかルーツとか文化大事にしてるところもそうだけど、普通に見た目かっこいい、ね。
見た目かっこいい。
かっこいいよね。
ドタイプ。
それは顔、ファッション。
顔もファッションも髪型も。
もう全部。
全部。海外から来てるもんね、全部。
全部。
黒人の方とかも付き合いたいです。機会があれば。
Of course. Of course. Of course.
はい。
So, after carefully listening to their revelations, here's my deep critical analysis. This is how this white proximity works. First, access to power and resources. Individuals with white proximity may receive benefits like better access to resources or a more favorable reception in a certain social or professional setting. Navigating social structures is also a thing that becomes of advantage, you know. The concept of white proximity explains how some people of color navigate the world by adopting behaviors, mannerism, or ways of speaking that are associated with white culture to gain advantages or avoid negative judgment. You see that some of the ladies in the video we've seen, they preferred bringing home a white partner, whether they are from any European country, but as long as he is not dark than them, then they are accepted back home. So they are questioning themselves, how did we arrive here? How did we get here? Well, all this is just about their parents. You know, their parents have painted an image of a beauty standard in their mind, and this ideology is very, very corrupted, you know. Another thing we need to look at is the white adjustment. You see, it is used to describe people who are not white but are perceived to benefit from white privilege because of their closeness to whiteness, such as being biracial, multiracial, or having lighter skin, you know. Another thing is the principal policy gap. This idea is sometimes linked to principal gossipy gap, where a person may believe in equality in principle but still benefit from or not actively oppose policies that maintain racial hierarchies. That is one thing, you know. Also, another thing is a response to racial trauma. For some people, like we've seen the victims here, adopting a proximity to whiteness strategy is a response to racial trauma, a way to navigate a world where they have experienced discrimination, you see. There are many examples, and we've seen from the video, and these are more additional examples to the real world, you know. In the professional setting, an example includes a non-white CEO being consistently mistaken for a subordinate by people who are interacting with their white executive, or a professional speaking to a people in a foreign country deferring to their white colleague, you see. Even the non-white CEO is more fluent in the local language. People perceive certain race to a certain caliber, you see. That is white proximity. Also, it extends to family life. A parent may use their own proximity to whiteness to try mitigate racism for their mixed race child at school or in police encounters, you know. Also in education, this happens. A person of color may experience a sense of being authored and oppressed by white supremacist structure, even if they have inherited some access to resources through white parent, you know. White proximity is a disease, and it's a cancer in the society that really needs to be taken care of, you know. So guys, that's all that I have to share in this video. You have any thoughts, share them in the comment section, and see you in the next one.